I think hunting is one of the worst ways to run a business, to be honest with you, unless you're doing it. So I equate it to farming, and I'll explain about hunting later about long. So there's three types of farming out there. There's the type of farming that basically is one seed, one plant. Let's think about carrot farmers. You put a seed in the ground. A few weeks later, you get a plant. You eat the plant. You got to go plant another seed because you don't have any more food left. You've ate it all.
Yeah.
So that would be like a real estate agent. You get a house, you sell the house, or you get a listing, you sell the house. You got to go find another house.
Yeah, exactly.
Or another buyer or something like that. So I call those carrot farmers. And then you have, I call it the tomato farmers. So the tomato farmers, one seed, multiple fruits. This is maybe like a subscription model that allows you to then, eat a little bit for several weeks, months, even. You can eat off that same tomato plant, but eventually that subscription model is probably someone's going to say, oh, there's something better over on the other side. And I'm not going to, and they lose that customer and they go somewhere else. You got to go find another customer. And then there are the apple farmers. And the apple farmers start in the first year, they get no apples. They have a little 18-inch an 18-inch tree, and they don't have any apples. And the second year, they maybe now have something that's 3 feet high and still no apples. And then and then maybe they get a bunch of cherry apples and a pail of apples and then a bushel of apples and then 3 bushels of apples and then 10 bushels of apples, and year after year after year produces apples. That's the businesses that I've always been involved with and want to work with. And so I encourage all my mentees that I work with that, find a business that's an apple tree, that you've locked the people in for a long, long time, that your relationships can keep them coming back for more and more and more and more. And try to make that work for that business. Hunting is kind of like carrot farming, but it's even worse because I know when I put a seed in the ground, I know where that seed is. I know where that carrot's going to be in 8 weeks or whatever it is. In hunting, you have no idea whether or not you're going to find food. Just go to what I forget there's a Discovery Channel thing I've seen on called Naked and Afraid.
Oh yeah.
Where these are like experienced naturalists that go out and they can't hunt for nothing.
Yep.
And these are people who know what they're doing. And so I can't imagine. So they come back day after day without finding any food.
Yeah.
And so, like I said, at least the carrot farmer knows that they know
where it
coming.
is. Yeah. Yep.
So if you can solve the problem of just 1 in 1 million people out there, you don't have to be the next Uber. You don't have to be the next Airbnb. You can find a niche to do this. And so, like, for instance, I had a guy come to me and he says, I want to do Amazon type lockers and I want to sell them. And I said, why do you want to do that? He goes like, well, I think that's a really great idea. And I think that more and more people are going to want these storage lockers and be able to do that. I said, yeah, Amazon's in that business though. Why would you want to do that? And he says, well, because I go, why aren't you making the hinges that go on these boxes, these lockers? And why aren't you making the pins that go into the hinges and to hold the hinges in there and do this? Because there's not a whole lot of competition to the guy making pins that go into hinges that go onto lockers. And so you're finding, he's like, well, that's such a small market. Yes, it is, but you don't have a lot of competition. You can create a better mousetrap doing that. You can talk to your customer, find out why these things are breaking, and you can create something much better for them. And they're not talking about margins anymore. They're talking about how many you can deliver.
Yeah.
And such. So the idea is I'm trying to get them out of, don't do something that everyone else is doing. As a young child, I was the oldest of 5. My mom had 5 kids by the time she was 26. We lived in a small 1,200 square foot house. There was 4, there was 4 boys and 1 girl. And so the 4 boys slept in 2 sets of bunk beds in a 12 by 14 room and such. So we were really close in a lot of ways. But on the other hand, as I got older, found out that we grew up near San Francisco and during the late 60s and early 70s. So my parents, because of their age and such, tend to be more of the flower children and such. And found out later they were pretty much habitual drug users. And my dad was pretty much dealing drugs back then. And he also was a bookmaker. So he was one of these people. I've just never seen any of the parlay cards that used to be back before it was all legal. So but he was a truck driver. He's like a UPS driver. So
Okay.
he had an opportunity. So he would go from one of his customers was like Warner Records, and he would take a small package of cocaine to one place and take it over to the next guy over in the next record store and things like that. So he had he had that ability to go and do those things. And additionally, when you have 5 kids, as parents, young parents especially, you want to escape.
Yeah.
And so you really don't want to be with your kids. And so
Yeah.
the kids, we entertained ourselves a lot. We played games. Mostly we just went on adventures, which most parents would be arrested for today, besides the drugs and the gambling.
Those aside.
Yeah. Well, I was 7 years old, and I had some friends that lived on the other end of the development that we lived in, which is about 3 miles away. So here's a 7-year-old walking to his friend's house 3 miles away.
3 miles. Wow.
Through, hills, and, anything could happen. And, nowadays you ask the kid to go next door to get a cup of sugar, and, you have to have, be able to see that person all the way. So we had this great sense of adventure that we used to go away in the mornings, and during the summertime especially, go away in the morning and not come home till dinner.
Yeah.
Parents didn't ask where you were. No, we were out. We were just hanging out.
Exactly.
And we weren't the only folks. Almost the entire neighborhood was the same way. So we just go to the sandlot and play baseball, or we just find ways to amuse ourselves. If nothing else.
Well, I'm sure with having that much exposure to independence at such a young age, that probably helped foster that that sense of independence in you that you have today, on the entrepreneurial side of things. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely. And in fact, that's what I try to give my kids, as they were growing up. And, once again, I didn't want to be arrested for,
you didn't work for UPS, I take it, right?
No. Although I've done a variety of stupid jobs. And in fact, what's part of the independence was that, we were on food stamps, we were on assisted lunches, but so was everyone else in our neighborhood. We came from a very, I'm being liberal when I say it was working class. It was lower. It was upper or lower class neighborhood. And it was, I went to a trade school for high school where kids were not expected to go to college at all. Out of 250 kids that graduated, we had about a dozen or so that went off to a 4-year college.
Oh, wow.
And maybe about another 75 or 80 that went to a local community college. And then maybe a couple of those went on to a 4-year college.
Yeah.
So but I could arc weld at 14. And I could, settling gas torch at 14, and I can bend tin, and I can be a machinist by the time I was about 16. And so, but there was no chemistry classes you can take. There was no physics classes. There was the maximum amount of math you could take was up to trig. So that was about it. And so it was very, that's what you were expected to do, was being in the trades, carpenter or a mechanic or something like that, or roofer or something. And almost all my friends are in the trades. In some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's similar. After I graduated high school, I didn't go to college either. I joined an electrical contracting company and started an apprenticeship program, in electrician, or as an electrician. So
you would have been one of my friends. I was actually one of the 12 that went off to school.
Wow. So what did you study in school? What was your thing that you gravitated toward?
Well, it was business. Well, first I wanted to be a record engineer. So I couldn't get into that department. It was impacted. I went to San Diego State because it was absolutely the furthest. I had one goal in mind as I was growing up through high school, and that was how to get out of San Bruno. I didn't care. I just wanted to get out of that town and get away from my parents, get away from everyone and everything about that thing. So I had to go somewhere far. So I went to San Diego State, and which was the farthest in-state place away from the Bay Area.
Yeah.
And so I couldn't get into the telecommunications and film. So I ended up as a business major, did that for 2 years, was on the dean's list for 2 years, and realized after I had a job kind of in a boiler room type of an operation, trying to sell paper to companies, that, and it was a total scam, that I needed something a little bit more. So I said, well, I'm pretty good in math. I've never taken a physics class. I've never taken a chemistry class. So I'm going to enroll in the electrical engineering department, electronic engineering.
Okay.
And I'm going to become a chip maker.
Yep.
So I went from being on the dean's list for 3 out of 4 semesters to almost dropping out, but it's not dropping out, but failing out, busting out, because I didn't have any, I didn't have any of the background to do any of this stuff. Didn't have the math, and so I had to start with calculus and all those other kind of things. So it was a struggle for the next 4.5 years to get me out. Went to summer school, went to winter sessions, just repeating classes in the summer that I failed during so I ended up with an electronics engineering degree in what's called VLSI, very large scale integration systems. And so, but I never, ever wanted to do that. All I wanted to do was do technical sales.
Okay.
And so it's really hard to be motivated when you have no desire to do that.
Yeah.
Kind of becoming a finance major because you want to open your own company, doing something else. So that really wasn't my motivation, but I got a really cool job right out of school in an international firm. So this is 1985. And so they sent me all over the world. I got a chance to go to Africa, Europe before the wall was down, Middle East, all the way over to India. And it was a great experience for a 24-year-old kid or 23-year-old, whatever old I was at the time. And so it was a great experience to be able to go do that kind of stuff.
Was this on the technical sales side of things? Is that what you were doing?
Yeah, I was selling basically power protection products like UPSs, like when you pull, when you lose your computer so it doesn't go down.
Yep.
So this has been on the forefront. But traveling internationally in those days, you had all paper tickets. There was no internet. Yeah. There was no cell phones. There was no credit cards really.
Yeah.
I had traveler's checks that I would take and use over there. And it sounds glamorous, but because it's not like I'm going to go to, let's say, Saudi Arabia for 2 weeks and hang out there.
Yeah.
It wasn't. It was like I'm in Saudi Arabia for 2 days, and then I'm in Jordan for a day, and then I'm in Syria for a day, and then I'm in Lebanon for a day. Actually, I didn't make it to Lebanon, and then over to Cyprus so I can throw back my my passport, because I had a separate passport just to go to Israel.
Oh wow!
And because you couldn't get a visa to go into the Arab countries at that time. And the fact that it was apartheid, if I needed to go into South Africa, I had a separate passport for that one as well.
Wow, that's cool. So you navigated all of those, and I can't imagine, we take it for granted today, but like navigating how to get to where you needed to go to, like you said, no cell phones, you didn't have a GPS, obviously. So I can remember going to Seattle before GPS and getting completely lost in Seattle's grid of streets that, there's 4 of the same streets in completely different areas of the city. I couldn't imagine being, in another country and not knowing where the heck you're going. How did you navigate that back then?
Well, mostly I had distributors and representatives over there who would pick me up at the airport, take me to the hotel, and then take me around to their customers. I was the factory expert.
I see.
So that kind of helped me to build the model that I'm actually using today, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But the idea here is you have a factory expert who comes in and teaches them how to sell the product, and they might have maybe 15 or 20 lines that they represent, and so if I can teach them how to use our products effectively and how to sell our products effectively, then I would be successful in helping them to sell.
Yeah, sure. That makes sense. So when did you start your first company?
So I left that company after about 3 years, and I went to another company that was manufacturing components for about 6 or 7 years, and they were a big corporation and just horrible situation there. And then while I was actually visiting one of my customers, which was a big multinational, they said, "Look, I buy all my components from you already. We would, what you can really do is help me to find this." Again, this is pre-internet. This is probably about 1990 or 1991. No, 1990. And I said, "Oh yeah, let me see what I can do. I have a bunch of friends overseas to help build this up." And this was for Sony TV. So I was able to help them find something over there because I got some stuff together, and then somebody else wanted me to help them to find power cords. And I was still working for my regular company, and I would work there from 9 to 5, and I make they say you can make a living from 9 to 5, you make a life between 5 and 9. And so I was coming home, and I was doing the invoicing, I was doing whatever accounting there was, I was doing purchase orders, talking to the people overseas, because on the West Coast,
Yeah.
they don't even get to their office between, till 5 o'clock our time.
Yeah.
So then I'm over there, I'm talking to them on the phone and sending faxes and all kinds of other stuff. So it was pretty interesting to do that. And so the first year I had this little distribution company going on. We did about $50,000, $60,000 worth of sales. Maybe brought in $10,000 worth of gross profit.
Yeah.
And then second year, more and more people started asking me for stuff, and I started sourcing stuff for them, and it got to be about $250,000. And in the third year, I'd already hired an employee to come in and take the orders and be on the phones during the day. So I finally ended up leaving my company after about 2 years.
Okay. So you were still working for someone as you were building all of that for those first
Correct.
2 or 3 years. Yeah. Okay.
Correct. And managing an employee and sales in 2 different fronts and doing my regular job. And it was pretty interesting. And then, fortunately I was a field salesperson, so I can, my time was my own. I was working for a company outside of St. Louis. So, then I left the company and then it continued to just, mushroom. And so from 250 to 600 to $1.4 million. And it just went throughout the 90s. It grew to about $4 million.
Okay. Okay.
And then it kind of, then it absolutely cratered. One of the things, and I kind of see this analogy today, as a matter of fact, but the Y2K thing happened at the end of the 90s.
Yeah.
So all those people were buying things from me, and I was putting it in my inventory, and they're ramping up, and they can't get enough of it. It's the toilet paper syndrome, right?
Yeah.
So they're buying way too much, and then Y2K really didn't happen, and the telecoms and the .coms blew up, and there's a bunch of things that just happened simultaneously, the perfect storm. And but the bottom line is that I went from about $4 million in June of 2000 to, I don't think we shipped $50,000 worth of stuff by December.
Wow.
And so the marble just fell off the table.
Yeah.
And because we were so profitable and everything, I said, oh, this is just a temporary blip. So I borrowed a bunch of money from the SBA and to keep us going and keep my staff intact and all of this stuff. And it never did come back. So it was, now I was in debt to the tune of hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
Going to lose my house. It was all bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
Throughout the 2000s. And in the meantime, I'd started a couple of other companies that wasn't necessarily a great thing either. It was just fighting fires on way too many fronts.
Yeah.
And I still don't believe that's a good idea. I really, really, truly believe that serial entrepreneurs, are, well, unless you're serial, if parallel entrepreneurs are horrible.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of multitasking, and only because I don't think it works.
Yeah, no, completely agree. So when would you say that it sounds like from 2000 to maybe 2010 ish, that it was pretty tumultuous up and down. You think you're maybe on the right track, and the rug gets pulled out from under you again. How many times did you have to crash before you finally started getting everything sort of solidified and this is the path that we're going to use to move forward with?
It was always the same story. Okay, so I talk about this stuff, and I heard you interview someone the other, like I said, I've listened to a lot of these things, and you were talking about the hunters versus the farmers.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so here's my take on the fact. Sometimes I just want to yell in the microphone back
no, I love it. I love
speaker. So we have a guy talking about hunting, and I think hunting is one of the worst ways to run a business, to be honest with you, unless you're doing it. So I equate it to farming, and I'll explain about hunting later on. So there's 3 types of farming out there. There's the type of farming that basically is one seed, one plant. Like, think about carrot farmers. You put a seed in the ground. A few weeks later, you get a plant, you eat the plant, you got to go plant another seed because you don't have any more food left. You've ate it all.
Yeah.
So that would be like a real estate agent. You get a house, you sell the house, or you get a listing, you sell the house, you got to go find another house.
Yeah, exactly.
Or another buyer or something like that. So I call those carrot farmers. And then you have, I call it the tomato farmers. So the tomato farmers, one seed, multiple fruits. This is maybe like a subscription model that allows you to then, eat a little bit for several weeks, months, even. You can eat off that same tomato plant, but eventually that subscription model is probably someone's going to say, oh, there's something better over on the other side, and I'm not going to, and they lose that customer and they go somewhere else. You got to go find another customer. And then there are the apple farmers. And the apple farmers start in the first year, they get no apples. They have a little 18-inch an 18-inch tree, and they don't have any apples. And the second year, they maybe now have something that's 3 feet high and still no apples. And then and then maybe they get a bunch of cherry apples and a pail of apples and then a bushel of apples and then 3 bushels of apples and then 10 bushels of apples, and year after year after year produces apples. That's the businesses that I've always been involved with and want to work with. And so I encourage all my mentees that I work with that, find a business that's an apple tree, that you've locked the people in for a long, long time, that your relationships can keep them coming back for more and more and more and more. And try to make that work for that business. Hunting is kind of like carrot farming, but it's even worse because I know when I put a seed in the ground, I know where that seed is. I know where that carrot's going to be in 8 weeks or whatever it is. In hunting, you have no idea whether or not you're going to find food. Just go to what I forget there's a Discovery Channel thing I've seen on called Naked and Afraid.
Oh yeah.
Where these are like experienced naturalists that go out and they can't hunt for nothing.
Yep.
And these are people who know what they're doing. And so I can't imagine. So they come back day after day without finding any food.
Yeah.
And so, like I said, at least the carrot farmer knows that they know
where it is. Yeah. Yep. And they're going to come up.
So
you mentioned like your mentees. What would be, I guess, some characteristics? I completely understand the analogy of the apple farming, but are there certain businesses or certain characteristics that you teach or that you tell people to pay attention to? And again, the apple tree is a great analogy, but I guess maybe just even getting a little bit more specific as far as what types of businesses would you suggest that people get involved in?
All right. Well, let me preface this by the very first. Whenever I meet a new mentee, I do a lot of mentoring with entrepreneur students over at San Diego State. It's not very far from my office, and I do. So I've got currently 3 over there right now that I work with, and plus a lot of. So this is the same thing I say to them. If you can do something, if you're over in China and you can do something that only 1 in 1 million people can do, you can touch your tongue to your ear, you can memorize 400 numbers, you can have a vertical leap of 60 inches. 1 in 1 million people can do this. Congratulations. There's 1,300 other people just in China who can do exactly the same thing you can do. And in the world, there's 7,000 people. So if you can solve the problem of just 1 in 1 million people out there, you don't have to be the next Uber. You don't have to be the next Airbnb. You can find a niche to do this. And so, like, for instance, I had a guy come to me and he says, I want to do Amazon type lockers and I want to sell them. And I said, why do you want to do that? He goes like, well, I think that's a really great idea. And I think that more and more people are going to want these storage lockers and be able to do that. I said, yeah, Amazon's in that business though. Why would you want to do that? And he says, well, because. I go, why aren't you making the hinges that go on these boxes, these lockers? And why aren't you making the pins that go into the hinges and to hold the hinges in there and do this? Because there's not a whole lot of competition to the guy making pins that go into hinges that go onto lockers. And so you're finding, he's like, well, that's such a small market. Yes, it is. But you don't have a lot of competition. You can create a better mousetrap doing that. You can talk to your customer, find out why these things are breaking, and you can create something much better for them. And they're not talking about margins anymore. They're talking about how many you can deliver. And such. So the idea is I'm trying to get them out of, don't do something that everyone else is doing. Don't open a restaurant. There's a lot of people who open restaurants, and most of them are successful or not successful, depending on how you look. And but they get burnt out, and just doing another commodity doesn't really help. But if you were able to create something and find a niche that nobody is being underserved, don't be a pharmaceutical company, but figure out how to make a better bottle to put them in.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense.
Or better distribution system or something.
Yeah, and you mentioned, Amazon, Jeff Bezos, right?
Sure.
I still remember when all that they sold was just books, and they got to be the best at selling books, and then look what happened with Amazon. So, completely agree. Being able to focus in on one specific thing, and be the best at that thing, then that'll ultimately springboard you into other opportunities.
All of our products are niche. I mean, no one wakes up in the middle of the night and says, and first of all, you didn't ask me what I do, but we're manufacturing.
We'll get there. Yeah.
So we manufacture fuses, circuit breakers, and switches.
Okay.
Again, you don't wake up in the middle of the night saying, I want to be a fuse salesman.
Yeah.
It's just, there's not a bunch of people who do that Woody Allen thing when they get up in front of the room and say, I want to be a fireman, So we laugh at that because of that. But we attempt to find niches, and then when we have focused on that niche and focused on that distribution center, and then we can become a Jeff Bezos. It doesn't really matter what we push through the system anymore once we've perfected the system.
Yeah.
And make this, and we're not going to perfect it, but we're just going to continue to make it better.
So did your engineering background, your electrical engineering background, did that lead you into that market of producing the fuses and switches and all of that?
No. Well, yes and no. I mean, I got the job originally. I told you there was a job in between the UPS manufacturer, and this was a company that was selling fuses. And the fuse industry is a duopoly. So I tell people, think of Eveready, think of Duracell. Now tell me the third battery manufacturer.
Energizer?
That's Eveready.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't know. Is there? Yeah, I mean.
So my point is, we're the third guy.
Okay.
In a duopoly. So think of Fujifilm and think of Kodak film if you're old enough to film.
Yep.
Name me the third guy. And so we're the third guy.
Okay.
And so we feast off the crumbs of those other guys.
I see.
Because we're willing to do things that they will never do for their customers.
Yeah.
And we do those things. And so we've grown. One of those companies is a $2 billion company. The other one's about $1.5 billion.
Wow.
And we're $12 million.
Yeah.
And so that's the reason why we've been able to grow once we prove ourselves to these customers that we're growing apple trees.
Yep.
So they don't want to give us the first shot, but we put a seed in the ground, we sell them something that they have a problem with, then they say, well, these things aren't so bad. Yeah. And by the way, you can do this. And so we continue to grow our companies into apple trees, our customers into apple trees, and to a point where they can't live without us now.
Yeah.
We're doing custom stuff for them. We're doing all kinds of stuff for them that big guys just won't do.
So what types of like custom projects, like what would be an application that you would, be able to help somebody with?
Okay, I'll give you a great example. So there's a company down in Texas that basically makes tractor trailers that wants to install a UPS or a GPS system. So they want to be able to track those things everywhere. So a standard fuse holder, you need a fuse in order to power this thing up. So a standard fuse holder has a piece of wire that's 4 inches on each side. Okay. I go down there one day and I see that they have a fuse holder, but in order to get to the power box, it's about an extra, a yard away, three feet longer. So they're taking that standard fuse holder, splicing on another 3-foot piece of wire on it, adding a butt splice in there, crimping it down, and then putting a little ring terminal on the end of it, and then putting it together. I walk in and I was like, that's stupid. Why don't you just buy a fuse holder with 40 inches of wire on it?
Yeah. With the ring on it. With
the ring on it. And they said, well, it doesn't exist. I said, why doesn't it exist? We do that. And so, and do you guys do them in different color wires? Hell yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
Can you insert the fuse inside of it already so we can just preload it and just take it out of the box and install it? Yeah, no problem. And so here's the interesting thing. So we were selling a fuse holder to them we had a cost of it, roughly 40 cents, and we're selling it for roughly 80 cents. Mm-hmm. And by the time they were doing all their stuff to it and sending it out and getting it all produced and such, it was costing them $5.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So they were sending it out and bringing it back. And we were able to produce this, at a minimum amount of cost. I think we took a 40-cent cost and made it 75-cent cost.
Yeah.
We're selling it to them for $3.
Yeah.
They're saving $2 a piece. They're getting a better product.
Yeah.
And we've just increased our profitability from 40 cents to $1.50
Yeah.
on the same opportunity. The only people that are out the thing are the contract manufacturer that used to build this for them.
Yeah.
They did it in-house. So this was a project that was doing, I don't know, 2,500 pieces a month.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you multiply that, and now when they try to go out there and try to replace us for
Yeah.
doing this,
Nobody
we're down
can-
the standard. No one wants to do it. Now, I'm
That's
sure
really
someone could
interesting.
do it.
So obviously you wouldn't have known that was an issue unless you actually went out to your customer and saw what they were doing, and you had the wherewithal to say, hey, why are you going through all these extra processes, these extra steps? Have you found a way to be able to figure that out, or find those little things without actually having to go out and because people don't know what can be done because that's the way they've always done it before in the past. So I guess having the wherewithal again to be able to know that there's a better way to be able to do what you guys are taking so long to do. So I guess again the question is there a way to be able to identify where those holes or those issues might be lying without having to physically go out there and talk to the people to realize that there is an opportunity there? Does that make sense?
Totally. So you fed me a great line. So this,
good.
That's the reason I'm sitting here smiling on this. I know this is not a video thing, but so here's the thing. We knew a long time ago there was no way we can go out there and look at millions of customers, potential customers out there. So what we did early on is we said we created, again, we have to zig whenever we would call it contrast and compare. Mm-hmm. And so we can't be like those other billion-dollar companies. So we have to do something different. So we decided we were only going to sell through authorized distributors. Mm-hmm. And we were going to spend all of our time and energy and focus in training, just like I did overseas, training those guys out there. And so our field salespeople are just there really to manage and you don't manage people, you lead people. But the idea here is we're just there to train those people to look for those opportunities. Yeah. And so now we have about 600 or so authorized distributors around the United States, and each one of them have 2 or 3 salespeople, and each one of them have 50 to 100 customers each. And so now they're out looking for those opportunities like there's no tomorrow. So now I've got these Dobermans out there looking for these opportunities that they know nobody else out there, the 2 incumbents that are out there can't service these markets. So
that is so interesting.
They're super hungry going out there looking and bird dogging all these projects for us. Yeah. And so our goal is to get these guys up and trained. We don't sell anything direct to a factory that's actually using the product, which is also has a lot of other problems, because if you're a factory and you're an engineer at a factory and such, and you say, oh great, we want to buy your product, your OptiFuse products, seems like well, we can't sell them to you. Mm-hmm. You have to go buy them from an authorized distributor. Mm-hmm. And they said, well, but we want to buy them from you. We're going to buy a lot. Yeah. And we said, I don't care how many you buy. Because that's our brand promise to the distributors, and that's why the distributors came on board with us to say, we trust you. That's at the end of the day, we're selling is trust. Yeah. We sell products that are supposed to be insurance. Fuses open up because there's a problem. Right. Circuit breakers open up in your house. You don't want to burn down your house, so your circuit breaker opens up. Yep. And so we have product that protects people and equipment. And so we feel really, really good about what we do and what we sell. And so we're out there promoting trust amongst these guys. One of the reasons why we haven't been able to bring on as many customers as we want, because they said, well, we're really used to the incumbents in there, that they have a product that works. Why do we want to change it? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So we that's been how it's the fear of changing to our customer base. Again, it's a multi-billion-dollar company, a marketplace, and we do millions. We could be doing a lot more. But we've been growing. We've actually we've been on the Inc. 5000 now 7 years in a row.
Wow! Congratulations. Very cool.
Thank you. And we were London Financial Times, 477th fastest growing company in Americas, all Americas, And in 2017, we were actually, Forbes magazine listed us as best 25 small companies in America.
Oh, incredible. That's
And no
very
one's even
cool.
heard of us.
Yeah, that's incredible. So who are your main customers? Is it all around like automotive, or are there other like residential type applications, or what would you say your main customer base is?
About 75% of our business is automotive, things that run on a battery.
Okay.
If you think of it that way. And then about 25% are things you plug into the wall. We don't do anything that basically from the wall socket all the way back to the utility company. We don't really work with any of that product.
Okay. Okay.
So it's not electrical. Like you were saying, you were a journeyman electrician.
Yep.
We don't do anything
Okay.
out there with those guys. We leave those up to those two big incumbents.
Yep.
And if you're you said you're an electrician, so you probably have heard of bus fuse or little fuse or something like that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So those are pretty interesting. So we do that, and the reason being for the automotive, or it's kind of had gravitated towards the automotive a little bit more, is because there are not as stringent UL requirements. So because it's low voltage.
Yeah.
It's,
right.
It's 12 volts in your car, or hybrid. It's a little bit higher voltages and such. So
yeah, no, that makes sense.
Yeah. So that's what we do.
Very cool. So what were some of the, I guess, the initial challenges that you had getting that type of a business set up? Because again, I imagine, getting your first distributors and your first, reps on board with this, was that a difficult task to do that? Or did you have enough people that you knew, in the industry that you had, I guess, a Rolodex of people that you're able to tap into to offer that?
That's what I thought when I started the business.
Yeah, right.
And so I ended up starting the fuse business after the distribution business about 10 years later, when everything just went to heck in a handbasket for the distribution business because of everything I talked about before. So we started a fuse business to compete with those other guys, and it wasn't a really good time to start a new business up.
Mm-hmm.
So it took us 10 years to get those seeds and those apple trees going. We did a lot of different things to, we created some marketing to really get the distributors on board and get those guys trained. And then it was me crisscrossing the country and our sales manager crisscrossing the country, spending a lot of time in front of these distributors, doing lunch and learns and all kinds of other things that we had to do. And then we hired our first salesperson, and then we hired two, and then we hired three all at one time. And so they gave them all a geographic territory. So they're out doing those same things. But even then it's difficult. It's really, really difficult to find great salespeople. And we pay them really well, but we almost, because we can't take people from the industry because they just don't understand how we do things in our culture. We're very culture and values driven company. And so we have a situation where we only hire new college graduates.
Okay.
And so again, they're not looking to sell fuses and circuit breakers. They're looking to go work for Google. Yeah. And so it has been really difficult, even though, my top salespeople make $250,000 to $500,000 a year.
Wow.
6 years out of school. Yeah. So the opportunities are endless for these guys. We've set it up to do almost so they can build a business within a business type of a thing. So it's not quite franchise, but
what would you say? Like you said, they all want to go and work for Google. The people that have come and worked for you, is there something, something that sort of stood out with them, with their personality or anything like that they gravitated more toward this than, what a typical, young person would go and, want to go join the tech companies or what have you?
The number one thing that they have is they have an innate curiosity. Just like you, we talked about that before. It's like you have to want to know what they're doing, how they're doing it, why they're doing it, what are they hoping to achieve, what would they like to see in the product that's not there? And understanding it, have enough personality to go out there and convince somebody that you're here, we want to take you to there, and how can we create a plan to actually do that? So they're creative, they're inquisitive. They're entrepreneurialistic to a certain extent as well.
Yeah,
They
sure.
they know if they work really hard, they can actually do really, really well for themselves.
Yeah.
On that. But they also want to be a part of a values-based company, and we're very much that. We believe in, a lot of the different things that we're working with, and integrity and learning, and we're really big in to communication, and having great fun. We really believe in giving back to our community. We do that, with the mentoring, with other things, with food projects that we're doing. We've adopted we're very close to the border, of course, here in San Diego. So we have an orphanage down in Tecate that we support a little bit, and do stuff with them as well, clothing drives and other things like that. And so they like that.
Yeah.
These are all things that speak to young people, millennials
Absolutely.
and Gen Zs and things like this, to come out and join us and be a part of something really special that they can grow. And then about 2 years ago, I decided to sell the company to the employees through an ESOP.
Oh, wow.
So they will own the whole thing.
Yeah.
Lock, stock, and barrel. And in about 12 to 15 years, they'll own everything.
Wow.
And so, $5 million company that they don't have to open their checkbook at all. It's just given to them.
Yeah.
And
Incredible.
yeah.
So how does that work from your perspective? I mean, is there any kind of a buyout for you, or is it essentially that's your retirement plan, when the buyout happens or when that transfer happens? How does that work?
So we did, I mean, it's a whole other podcast altogether.
I'm sure.
On ESOPs, but the way the ESOPs work is most companies will have a 401k.
Okay.
And so the company will contribute a certain amount of dollars based on their savings plans here. And so we take those same dollars based on our compensation, and we put that into a trust.
Okay.
And so the company contributes money into the trust uses the money to buy my stock.
I see. That makes sense.
So then, so the company and then we get a tax deduction for those, and then I don't pay taxes because it's an ESOP on the gains from the sale.
Yeah. Interesting.
I defer taxes. So
Yeah.
it's a 1042 exchange.
Okay.
And so, their ESOPs, I think, are really gaining momentum because it's not a taxable event to the owner.
Yeah.
If you do things right, and
Yeah.
I can set it up in tranches. So I start out with 12% and then add another 18%.
Yeah.
So as they can pay for the stock, I'll contribute a little bit more, and they'll pay for it.
Yeah.
Along the way.
Interesting. That is really cool.
It's a great program, and so these guys hopefully are going to all be, by the time it's all said and done, multimillionaires just by the fact that they own the company.
Yeah.
And the cool thing about it for the owner also is, on an ESOP company, is you never have to, if I sell it to a PE company, I lose control day one.
Mm-hmm.
And they want me to pound sand and kick me out the door. That's fine. It's their company. They can do whatever they want.
Yep.
Here, the board still runs, so the board basically appoints a trustee for the trust.
Mm-hmm.
And then the trustee then votes the board in. So it's somewhat symbiotic in that regard. And the board then appoints a president who right now is me.
It's you, yeah.
And so as long as I control the board, as long as I can, then I can be present for as long as I want.
Yeah.
And I can continue to keep the culture going.
That is really interesting. I like that. I like that as a way to be able to attract your talent and the people that are coming to work for you, and you still control everything. That is really cool. I've not looked into that before. So kudos to you.
It is really cool, but it hasn't really worked. So it's really good about keeping people here. I went out virtually to a bunch of career fairs and everything. Had one person who was actually ready to go. She quit a day before she was going to start with us. Yep.
Wow.
And so I have yet to be able to find. I had 4 or 5 different openings, and all 4 or 5 of them are still open to this day.
Wow.
So. No, I can't get, I go on to Handshake, which is the college platform for all this stuff. So I went out to about 200 different campuses and posted 3 different jobs, and maybe I got 10 applications.
Wow. So people aren't even really interested, even though that they can be They can be
Not at
owners.
all.
Wow. Huh.
Not at least not college seniors.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. That is really, really interesting.
So it's and it's not because they're not getting paid. They're all getting paid, but we're not Google. We're not Cutwater Spirits. We're not whatever public company you've heard in the news.
Yeah.
We're not them.
Yeah.
And no one wakes up in the middle of the night saying, I want to be a fuse salesman.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. What would you say, what's next for you guys? Do you have anything else that you have planned on the horizon?
So I'm also a big person into discipline. So I have a little thing on my wrist here. And so the two buzzwords I use or live my life by are discipline and gratitude.
Okay.
And so I'm really grateful for everybody in my life. And I think it was Isaac Newton who says, I can see so far because I'm standing on the shoulders of giants that went before me. So, but the discipline of not doing something else, stay focused on what I'm doing. I've got a $5 billion market. Why would I divert any of my attentions to anything else besides growing what I have in front of me? I'm not a serial. It's not even a serial entrepreneur. Serial entrepreneur might be someone who leaves one thing and starts something else. And I respect those guys. It's the parallel guys who will get bored with whatever it is that they're doing. I love what I do, and I can't. I love coming to work every day. I came to work a couple times this past weekend, and everything. And so it was. I love what I do, and I love the people I work with. That's the best thing about being an entrepreneur. Is I get to choose everyone I work with, and so I've got an incredible staff here, about 21 people now, and it's an incredible staff that I work with. I used to call ourselves the Island of Misfit Toys, but they didn't like that.
That's funny.
I'm not a misfit. I was like, okay.
We could start singing the whole song right there.
Exactly.
That's funny. Well, Jim, if people want to learn more about you or your company, how would be the best way to be able to do that?
The best way is just probably email me at jimk@triadcomponentsgroup.com. JIMK @triadcomponentsgroup.com. And we're, if they have a son or a daughter that want to join a company that are looking to graduate, and they're I'm looking for all sorts of majors. You don't have to be, in fact, I don't hire engineers. Zero of my salespeople are engineers. So I want to make that point as well, that almost all of them are business majors. And we'll have one who's a hospitality major who couldn't get a job last year, and she's just killing it.
Yeah, really.
She's absolutely just killing it right now. So
that's great. And any geographic location? Can you?
The two areas that I have open, I have 3 open right now. One's in the Southeast United States, one's in the Pacific Northwest, and one's in Eastern Canada.
Very cool.
And what they'll do is they'll come to San Diego for about a year. I know, twist your arm.
Yeah, right. It's terrible.
Terrible. The hard part is getting them to leave.
Yeah.
And then going back.
Send them back up to Canada.
Send them back up to Canada, exactly. But they then they will be required to go back into their territory and spend time there. We want to engulf them and they'll come out here for a year just to spend time with the company. And there's a lot of stuff that they need to learn. We spend a full year of training with our salespeople, because there's a lot of we call it drinking from a fire hose.
Yeah, there's all kinds of
so
things.
Much stuff.
Yeah,
we have about 12,000 SKUs.
Oh wow!
Parts that,
wow.
Yeah. So it's a pretty monumental task to learn about applications. We teach them all about car wiring diagrams and everything. So it's really an interesting thing. So we spend a lot of money and a lot of time before growing that apple tree. And such. So it worked out well. And anyway, it's just one of those things where we have we're constantly looking. So if you know somebody, if you have someone whose son is going to graduate or daughter who's going to graduate, 3 out of the 4 people we have today in the field are women. So in fact, out of our management team, out of our whole about half the people here are women and men. And then we have we speak about 8 different languages. So we have
Oh,
a lot of
wow.
immigrant people who work
Yeah.
here as well. And who speak all kind, Korean, Chinese, Spanish. Our chief marketing, we're an international company because we have,
Yeah.
our manufacturing is done in Taiwan, but our chief marketing officer is in Spain, Bilbao, Spain. So we're
Wow.
constantly doing Zooms
Yeah.
and so this whole idea about working from home was not foreign to us whatsoever.
Yeah.
And we
Yeah,
were
you guys are
actually
probably-
able to thrive.
Yeah, you guys were doing that well before last year, I would assume. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And we were this year it's just off the rails fast.
Yeah.
We normally average about 20-25% every year of growth. And then like this year's it's like 80% growth or something.
Wow.
So
Well, that's great. Congratulations.
thanks. Thank you very much.
Very cool.
But again, I can't take all the credit for it. I've just got this incredible team around me.
Yeah.
That if I get hit by a bus tomorrow, or I go off to Europe to go cycling
To go on
for
your
a
bike
month,
ride. Yeah.
so I can do that because I've got just this amazing team around me.
Yeah. And that's what it's all about is, like you said, you get to pick and choose the people that you work with and being able to place them in the right position so that you can go cycling across
Exactly.
Europe.
And that's what's really cool. And in fact, I say this all the time. And I think this is the Tony Hsieh model here that he wants to train his people and keep them engaged. And so I tell people, like I've never fired anyone for making a bad decision. I've only fired people or let people go for not making any decisions at all.
Yeah.
You
makes sense.
are required to make decisions. You are required to help the customer in any way you can.
Yeah.
And all the other constituents. So a lot of people just talk about customers. I've just talked about customers here, but the fact is there's 4 groups of people that we work with. We have customers, but we also have great vendors. We want them to succeed, and we want to be we want to be their best customer. Now, of course, we have the employees. That's a whole nother group of people that we want to make happy and become engaged with and such. And then we have our community. We have professors over at San Diego State that we do projects with, and who can and give back to the food bank and the pastor who runs the orphanage down in Tecate. So these are all people that are all part of our community and all the people that we want to engage with and create relationships with.
It's interesting that you call that out. So we also do what's called a decision hierarchy, where we in the real estate side of things, we base our decisions based on where they kind of land in order of importance, if you will. So like for us, community is number 1 above any one member of the community. And then, you basically go through all the stakeholders that you have contact with. And I mean, us, our families, are part of those stakeholders, and where do they land on, the decisions, and down to the regulators, which the regulators, I think, are right down at the very bottom, but, that like just being able to work through and understand, okay, where is this situation in order of importance in, how we place those decisions. It's important to be able to do that, and it's important to be able to recognize all the different players that you touch in your business. So
absolutely. And you have vendors, if one of your tenants or stakeholders has something, a drain that's backed up, you need to make sure that they get serviced and
exactly.
such. And you want to make sure you have a good enough relationship with that plumber that they're going to put you on the top of the list to get over there and help you out. And
exactly.
And so treat them well.
Yep.
And make sure you don't forget those guys, and like you said, regulators and all the other. That's UL or
exactly.
And then being able to give back to the community, like your podcast is giving back to the community. I'm here and you're here maybe because we have an ego or because a message that we want to, but it's like you said, it's about passing the secret sauce, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And it's about helping other people to get through and use other people's stories and experiences to help somebody else transfer or get through something.
Yep. And it's amazing too how we've had a number of people that have said, hey, I heard this guy, I've got this situation, would you mind making an introduction? Which is another great way to be able to just connect people and see where things go. Who knows what, maybe we'll have somebody who has some type of an auto problem that you can help solve for them. So it's great being able to be that connector.
We do that all. In fact, I came in on Saturday morning because there was a Navy ship that had blown a fuse in a meter that they needed.
Okay.
And so I came down here. I met some, whatever seaman first class to pick up a couple of fuses. I just gave it to them. There's just here's I'll just sample you a couple. Take what you need.
Yeah.
If that's going to keep our armed forces up and going,
Exactly.
here's my contribution.
There you go.
And you just give back, and sometimes you never know when those things are going to come back to you. But you don't count on them. It's not you're not doing it because it's a quid pro quo.
Yep,
you just do it because that's the right thing to do.
Yeah, exactly.
And so that's kind of the cool thing. And I've heard some of your guests. They're amazing in a lot of ways. Not all of them. I don't necessarily connect with each of them, but you've had some very colorful people.
We've had some great people, great connections. Yeah, it's been fun.
I still have about 60 to go, 65, 63 to go still.
Go.
So I'm working my way backwards.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah,
I love it.
It works out really well. So
Jim, this has been fantastic. Thanks for the time and all the insights into your business and your experiences. I love it and wish you nothing but good luck and success in the future.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate being here. I really appreciate the opportunity.
No problem.